Hey, what's up YouTube? Goratha here. So today's video is going to be a bit different than my normal builder guide videos. This is going to be a feedback video for GGG, and I want to talk about a lot of the changes in POE2 from patch point 3, as well as the point 1 patch with the endgame changes. I have a lot to talk about. I've made a bunch of notes here in a notepad I want to go over with you guys. Some of the ideas I have with the game, some of the problems I see, just give some of my feedback, what I think about certain things, how the entire patch went for me. I played a lot. I've played 6 or 7 different characters. I played on SF Softcore. I played to 95 in Hardcore. I played a couple level 95 characters in Softcore Trade. So I have a pretty good idea of a lot of the balance in the game. And yeah, I have a lot of opinions. So let's get into it. I thought I'd start out with the good and the bad and just talk about some of the good stuff about the patch and some of the bad stuff about the patch. I kind of split it up into different categories, like for example, the campaign, Abyss League, some new crafting, balance, some end game feedback with the new changes to towers and tablets. Before we go further into the video, I want to take a quick moment to thank the sponsor for today's video, Exit Lag. Now, if you ever watched my live stream before, you know I struggle a lot with internet issues. And one of the things I've tried in the past in order to fix my bad internet is exit lag. And I was pretty happy with them. The thing is, I've used it in the past already. I was very excited when they offered to sponsor my videos. This is pretty much a no-brainer for me. Exit lag offers a wide range of online search solutions from AI route optimization to a dynamic stabilizer, a diagnostic center, and they support a massive variety of games, including Path of Exile and Path of Exile 2. In order to get started, just head to their website, create an account, download Exalag, and install. It's just that easy. Once you're done, select any game you're choosing, your ideal routing, and apply routes. These results should speak for themselves. If you'd like to give it a try for better internet, or you just want to help support the channel, check my link in the description below and get 1 year for half the price. Let's start with the campaign. I feel like the campaign is the probably the best starting point, just because it's the first thing you do in the game. Yeah, so the campaign feels amazing. I gotta say, the changes to removing Cruel difficulty, and also adding Act 4 and interludes, the campaign feels a lot better to do over on a different character. I do currently feel like it is a little too long, though. I thought Act 4 was really interesting. I liked how you can kind of go whichever direction you want to. You can kind of mix up a bit with different characters. Having that like freedom felt pretty nice. And yeah, Act 4, it just felt like it had a lot better pace than Act 3. I think it was also a bit shorter than Act 3. I personally feel like Act 3 kind of drags on, especially on the second part of it. And yeah, I think Act 4 is amazing. Like we had the monkey boss, we had the curry. There's so many different like cool bosses, like the last boss of Tabakai. He talks a little too much though, I will say. They probably should tone down the RP. Maybe you can like skip it the second time around or something. The forced RP is a bit much in some cases. The bad. So like I said, I feel like the campaign still kind of drags on a lot. I think some of the zones are a little too large, and yeah, like especially like the desert interlude they added, all these big massive zones. It's a lot of walking. Sprinting is really nice though. Didn't really talk about in the notes here, but sprinting is a big part of the patch. And the more I played around sprinting, the more I liked it. I think sprinting does help a lot with the campaign speed, but it still feels a little too big in some cases. Character balance. So I feel like I have a pretty good, like unbiased view on this because I played pretty much everything. I played a caster build as my first build. I played a fresh start monk character in hardcore, like monk attack, hollow palm stuff. I played bow and SF softcore. I played a lot of different variety of characters, and I have a pretty good idea of how every character like performs in the campaign. And I have to say, the balance is terrible. Like it's so bad that whenever someone talks to me about struggling with like a build or something, or like struggling with the game, I feel like their opinion is almost entirely based upon like what skill they chose. So for example, if like someone's like the campaign's too easy, it's almost certainly the case they're playing like a really strong like attack based build, like lightning rod, lightning arrow. Because yeah, I mean the campaign's gonna be a joke if you're one shotting every boss with like 50,000 lightning rods. Versus like someone playing like Fireball, for example, you go Fireball like Act 2, you're gonna have a bad time. It's just like it doesn't do any damage. You're doing literally like 25 times less damage than like a Lightning Rod build is. The balance is awful. Now a lot of these characters do scale into the endgame and they become a lot better, like super endgame, but the campaign especially, most caster builds are terrible. Now there's a couple good ones. Everyone's gonna be like, yeah, ED Contagion's really good. Yeah, there is like a couple of good caster builds. Mostly I'm talking about the elemental caster builds. I do like infusions, by the way. Infusions were added this league. They add like a little bit of you pick up this infusion on the ground, your ability becomes a lot more, becomes empowered and does like different things or whatever. I actually did kind of like infusions. I think it's a pretty cool mechanic. Unfortunately, when the skills don't do any damage, it just doesn't feel very good to use. I think a lot of people were mistaking that infusions are bad for like casters are bad, because like casters, I think they're like really undertuned in the campaign. A big part of this is probably, which I'll talk about later, level scaling stuff. I think having to get plus levels on your gear is just a nightmare to scale your like caster builds in the campaign. Because you actually do get plus levels, you get a lot of damage, but then your mana suffers a lot. And what ends up happening is you have to put a lot of points on the tree into mana instead of damage. So you're solving your mana and you're getting more damage from your plus levels, but you're like kind of sacrificing damage on the tree at the same time. So you don't really even get stronger. And on the flip side, attack builds, they get a bunch of flat damage on rings, you get a bunch of flat damage on gloves. You have more items that scale your damage earlier, and they scale it in a big way. Yeah, I feel like casters just need higher numbers on skill gems, or they need to rethink the whole plus level thing. Something needs to change there, for sure, though. Now, weapon builds are pretty annoying, too, in some cases, especially if you're playing SSF. Almost all your damage is coming from your weapon, and you have to replace your weapon every couple levels, like 5 to 10 levels, unless you have a really insane weapon. And that's almost impossible to always get a better weapon that's like significantly better. Runes feel like they need to be increased, like drop rate wise, because I almost always felt like I was lacking runes to put in my weapons when I was playing attack based builds, especially. Runes feel like a nightmare currently in the campaign. They need to buff the runes, or maybe drop like runes that you can change into any type of rune or something. Because like right now it feels like there's too many runes and they're dropping too little. You're getting too many attribute runes and runes that don't really do anything. And you're not really getting the res runes or like the damage weapon runes. And this feels really RNG and really bad if you don't get what you need. So that's how I felt with the campaign and kind of my main thoughts on the campaign. Abyss League. So I'm actually a big fan of Abyss League. I think this was the first league mechanic that GGG has added to the game that feels improved over POE1 mechanic. Like Breach, Expedition, Ritual, these all feel kind of like watered down POE1 mechanics to me. They are like kind of just thrown into the game, which I understand the endgame's gonna be changing. This is like a temporary thing. Abyss League is really the first league. I mean, we had the Hunt like last league, like the Spirits, Legendary Spirits. I do feel like that is obviously a POE2 mechanic, but it doesn't feel very good. I feel like they need to rethink the Legendary Spirit mechanic. Like the Spirits should probably be faster, and they probably should maybe automatically go towards monsters, go through monsters. Right now, it just feels a little too annoying. It's like you have an escort mission, and nobody likes escort missions. So even though it's a POE2 mechanic, I don't think it was really like a good mechanic. Though it has potential, for sure. But yeah, this feels like a better POE1 mechanic. You don't have any backtracking, which is the main issue I have with POE1 Abyss. It has really good loot. It has like a couple bosses that you can fight. It has really interesting crafting options they added to the game. Crafting is a big plus this league for me. Yeah, this is amazing. Honestly, like the density, the crafting. One of my main issues actually was the performance. Performance in Abyss was really, really bad for the first couple weeks for me at least. I tried everything. I had to like lower my sound like channels down to like low. I changed from DX12 to Vulcan, like back and forth. I deleted all my shaders. Uh, Basically a nightmare to get the game to play well. And I have a really good computer, so it's like pretty annoying actually. This has been a lot better with the recent patch, but still, pretty big concern for me is how bad the performance has been with POE2. I know it's early access and they haven't optimized everything yet, but it's still a big concern for me. Visual clarity. So I was like, one of the things I thought POE2 was supposed to do was make visual clarity better. But honestly, I feel like the clarity is somehow even worse in POE2 than it is in POE1, which is kind of impressive. Everything for the Abyss is green. It's kind of hard to tell what's going on, especially if your build has a lot of particles. And yeah, I don't know, it's kind of a nightmare, especially when you also have modifiers like the degen ground that disables all your recovery, and you don't even know you're standing in it sometimes, and it does a ton of damage. Yeah, the some of the Abyss modifiers are pretty oppressive, and I'm not a big fan of things that disable all your recovery, especially when it's kind of hard to see. Some builds I played had a lot of issues with some of the Abyss rares. Other builds that are like stronger didn't really struggle at all. Like the again with the balance, it's kind of hard to kind of tell what's going on sometimes. Character balance is a massive problem right now. This balance in general, I think, is the weakest part about PoE2. But overall, yeah, this is like probably the best mechanic they've added to PoE2. I'm a big fan of it. Just need maybe some more visual clarity and maybe a little less oppressive modifiers. The boss is really cool, by the way. I actually like the boss mechanics. Unfortunately, most of the characters I played kind of just one-shot the boss, so I didn't really see the mechanics very much. Again, with the balance, I feel like the game is both too easy and too hard at the same time, which I don't really know how to explain that, but yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it sometimes. Crafting. So this is probably part of the reason why I think the game's too easy endgame. Crafting is insane now. It's not a bad thing, obviously. Crafting is like a really core part about PoE in my opinion, and we didn't really have real crafting until this league. Yeah, it's insane now. We have crazy good crafting with all the greater perfect orbs. Abyss added a bunch of really good deterministic stuff. All the omens they added with Abyss. In combination with Ritual and Exhibition, you have a lot of deterministic crafting, and yeah, I mean, crafting's better than it's ever been. It's sometimes pretty easy to even get perfect items, depending on what you're rolling. Honestly, maybe a little too deterministic. Like some of the Ritual omens are probably a little too good with the new orbs, but mid-tier gear especially is very easy to obtain. For example, if you're looking for like a big evasion chest, usually it's just as easy as using like a perfect transmute on a good base and then getting an evasion roll, auging like a res, using a res essence, using like a prefix abyss omen and getting like another evasion mod, and then like you already have a pretty good chest piece. Like it's already kind of there. Yeah, it's very easy to get like double, triple res, like high evasion or high ES or something. Stuff like that's just super easy now. Maybe a little too easy, honestly. I don't really know how they're gonna balance that because it feels like rares are not worth picking up at all. Instead, we want to pick up white and blue items, which is I don't know. I feel like that's kind of the exact opposite of what they wanted to have in PoE2. I feel like PoE2 is supposed to be more about the ground loot, and this patch is a big step backwards in that, while also being a big step forward in crafting. Not sure how I feel about this exactly, but it's definitely something they need to figure out. Maybe rares need to drop way less, but be way more powerful, or something like that. I'm not sure, honestly. But yeah, right now, white and blue bases are pretty much the only useful things to pick up because the orbs are so strong now that you almost always get better items from that. And it's very easy to add good modifiers than it is to remove bad modifiers. The rares are just almost always useless. They are pretty useful if you use Expedition sometimes. Like, Expedition can be worth using to save a bad rare if that's one good set on it. But that's pretty much the only use case right now, so it's a bit weird. Yeah, I feel like homogenization, for example, is a little too powerful probably for Mithril. And probably the big part about like why it's so easy to get perfect like 61 stat items. This is the main. It's also pretty common, honestly. Balance in general. So, like I said earlier, I think balance is by far the worst part about PoE2. It's so bad. I can't really stress how bad I think it is. The game is like basically if you're a new player and you play one skill, like let's say you play like Fireball. I gave this example earlier. Let's say you play Fireball from like whatever, like level 20 to maps. You're gonna have a bad time. Like you're gonna really struggle. The game's gonna be very hard. You're gonna be like ZPS running out of mana on boss fights, using all your mana pots, barely winning sometimes, even with pretty good gear. Versus like Lightning Rod. You're gonna with no gear at all, just having random gear on the ground you dropped, maybe like a random bow you found early on. you're gonna be one-shotting every boss. By one-shotting, I mean like you throw out like 100 rods, you pre-stack all your rods, you attack like one time, the boss dies. It's just like such a big difference that your experience is gonna be completely different than somebody else. I feel like your entire experience right now is based on what skill you chose. It's not just Lightning Rod, it's not just Fireball. Honestly, almost every elemental like caster build is so weak right now in the campaign. It's ridiculous. And things like, I mean, Hollow Palm even. Hollow Palm is ridiculously good to level with. It's so strong. Almost all the attack builds are just really easy to level because they scale so well off of flat damage on rings and gloves. Meanwhile, casters, you really only have plus skill levels to scale your damage. And what happens is, I did mention this earlier, like what happens is you make your plus level gem better, like your gem gets higher damage, but it gets way higher mana costs, and you have no way to sustain it. Like attack builds get mana leech, they get way easier mana costs. And casters, they have to deal with the mana somehow, so you end up having to put a lot of points into mana on the tree, and you get less damage on the tree. Yeah, it's just not very good, and you don't have any flat damage. Most of your damage is just coming from your weapon or your offhand, an amulet, and it's just not good enough, honestly. Either they need to like rework the plus level scaling, or they need to look at the numbers for casters in general for campaign, especially early on. It's just such a big problem. I do feel like right now the game is really gear dependent for power. You can make any build work with enough gear, and there's like not too much like high end content in the game currently, so it's very easy to one shot all the bosses with almost any build. This does lead to almost everyone playing builds that have high move speed, like Deadeye. Deadeye is being played like 50% of the time right now out of like 16, 17 ascendancies, however many there are, which is absurd. That's ridiculous to me. And I think the main reason is move speed. At a certain point, move speed is the only thing that matters, and it's pretty easy to get to that point in the game currently. And yeah, another balance problem. I do feel like if Passive Tree had more power and Gear had less power, this would also help the campaign a lot for like weaker builds, because you could overlevel content, have more power from your passives, and not be as reliant on getting like flat damage rings, for example. But I mean, even though attack builds scale really well with the campaign, unique items are also pretty unusable with plus levels. Like if you have an amulet, for example, that's really good, but isn't have plus levels on it, you're never really gonna use that amulet over a +3 spell amulet, right? Fundamentally, just a bad that I don't like it at all. I think it's just not very well balanced. Makes almost all the unique items useless that are like offhands, or like weapons, amulets, stuff like that. Gloves even for like attack builds. Quivers for like bow builds. Like if you don't have plus level on your gear, you just don't do any damage. And it's just, this feels bad to me, honestly. Okay, patch point 3 feedback. So I did play a little bit of the patch point 3. This is the patch where they removed towers, basically. By remove towers, I mean towers got changed completely. They no longer have tablets applied to them. I did a fresh start SF softcore character, pro character specifically, to test this out. I figured it'd be better to have a fresh atlas to see how the game would play. Couple big changes here. The character I was playing had really good clear speed, kind of clunky-ish single target. Like not bad single target by any means, but clunky, on the clunkier side for sure. Basically, I had to freeze the boss to do a bunch of damage with snipe, and early on it was super easy to freeze consistently, so it was like a bit clunky. That was important because this patch is actually a much bigger patch than I was expecting. Bosses on every map is far bigger change than I initially expected from the patch. This actually adds a lot of difficulty, I think, and this kind of makes the balance between builds even, like the gap even larger than before. Because like I said, like the lightning rod build, you're gonna one-shot every boss anyways, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't slow you down at all. It's not like super difficult. But you're like your fireball builds, yeah, you're gonna be struggling a lot more because now you have to fight a boss every time to progress your Alice. And yeah, but a lot of builds just don't have any single target early on. You get a lot of single target later on when you have gear and levels. And early on, bosses are pretty rough. Before you could kind of skip around, do like one boss every like 10 maps or so. Now you have to fight them every map, and they're as hard as the old bosses are. The empowered bosses are even harder, like 2 times HP, for example. So I think the game's a lot harder now, and it's gonna be a lot harder to progress if you're not playing a meta build, especially on a league start. So I'm not sure how I feel about this. This might be a big surprise for a lot of people that are done with the league already and haven't tested this new change. Not sure how I feel about this. I think it's okay if the game's harder. Right now, it does feel like the early game is way harder than the end game. Like right when you get to maps, you're struggling a lot. Like bosses are pretty tanky. They don't even really get much tankier when you get to T16 maps. So it's like if you're gonna be struggling a lot. A lot of people are gonna hit a brick wall and just not want to play the game anymore. Yeah, it does get better later, but like I think it's a balance problem again, where like the game's too hard early on, maybe like the bosses are too tanky, and later on the bosses are too squishy. Like they don't, this isn't scale enough. I think the game should probably scale a bit more than it does currently. Another big change. Rare icons are gone completely. So before we had the rares, the gameplay was like you just run around, search for rare icons on the minimap, kill the rare, get the loot. Because almost all loot in POE2 comes from rares. I don't think GGG liked this because the gameplay was literally just, like I said, just chasing the minimap, just looking at the minimap for rares. I think it's fine they removed this because bosses are the objective now. But I think maybe they should add rare icons after you kill the boss. That way, if you have a juiced map, you can kill the rare boss, and then you share all the rares so you don't like miss any. Because currently, maybe this is something they should change, but rares are all the loot basically. Feels kind of bad if you skip a mechanic like that. So maybe a good middle ground would be just revealing it after you kill the boss. I don't know, but right now it feels a bit weird for sure. Towers have changed. So initially I was like, yeah, this is gonna be really good, right? Because you're no longer chasing down towers. You no longer have to overlap. That is really good, I think. Not having to worry about triple overlapping is really nice. They did nerf quantity on tablets though, and yeah, you no longer get any overlap. So loot is a bit nerfed on the high end. I personally don't mind that if I don't have to have some tedious setup. Yeah, I don't know how I felt about the shit, honestly. I didn't really play enough to get like a huge feel on it, but I know tablets are really rare now. They apply to the maps themselves. You need to have a specific modifier to get more than one. Like you need 2 modifiers to get 1, 4 modifiers to get 2, and 6 modifiers to get 3. This is a bit weird though, because if you don't have 6 modifiers in all your maps, you're gonna have different number of tablet uses. It gets a bit clunky. This is something that I would have to play around with a bit more. This feels a bit clunky, I think, currently though. Obviously next patch they're gonna focus on the endgame more, and maybe they'll make this a little less painful. I do think it's a little. I do think it's better than having to find towers and overlapping towers like before, though. But definitely needs a lot of work in the end game still. So what would I like to see with endgame in point 4? Figured I'd mention some of the ideas I had. So right now, I feel like the main issue I have with the endgame is it doesn't really feel like there's too much reason to explore. And what I mean by that is, like you pretty much just go for your tower, get your tablet, you go for your unique maps, get your progression done. You find like all these like random bosses that drop the lineage support gems. That's cool and all, but you don't really have any control over what type of map you're running. You don't have any player agency over what mechanics you're running as much. I mean, obviously you have the tablets, but the Atlas tree is very, very weak. There's no like specific strategies. You don't have like a huge way to invest into something. I feel like the Atlas needs to be reworked completely, honestly. Like way more points. Maybe make it so you need to complete every single map to get like an Atlas point, like every specific map or whatever. Maybe make it so the Atlas has larger biomes. Right now, it feels like when you enter a certain biome, like a desert or whatever, you have like maybe 10 maps of desert, and then it's over, and you like go to like a next biome. This mechanic is really underused, I think. If they had much bigger biomes, they could make it so you could like run around and look for biomes that you like to run. Then maybe have like 50, 100 maps of that biome, and you just run them over and over again. And maybe have like zone specific drops for those biomes. That way you like can search the atlas for the biomes you like and go for that. Maybe towers could reveal like a specific biome or something. Like their towers having the reveal mechanic, I think is really nice, and I think they should keep that. But I feel like it's just underutilized currently. I think they could make it a lot better. I think biomes being bigger would actually be a big step in the right direction, in my opinion at least. Because this would allow you to have more control over what you're running. Versus right now, like it's kind of just random. You don't really have too much control over what maps you're running. You kind of just get the map you get, and then you have to run it. That could be a nice way to incentivize exploring. Delirium. So I did feel like I should mention this. I think Delirium is way too powerful. And the Delirium I'm talking about is specifically the emotions you apply to maps. I think the actual Delirium mechanic is fine. But giving loot to people, just putting emotions on every map, I just feel like it's too easy and not difficult enough, and it's way too tedious and just annoying, honestly. I feel like Delirium, honestly, maybe they shouldn't even allow you to apply emotions to maps. Maybe they should have specific wastelands that drop that can have emotions applied to them. For example, like if you're running a Delirium itself, those Delirium maps can drop maps that you can apply emotions to, maybe. I don't know, honestly. Like I feel like the emotion mechanic needs a relook at. They need to look at that again for sure. Yeah, it's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. It's pretty much all the feedback I had for point 4. Sorry, point 3. I'm hoping point 4 iterates on the endgame a lot more, because I do think the game is in a really good spot now, just other than balance. I feel like I said, I think balance is a nightmare right now, to be honest. I really like where the game's going though, and I think it's going in a really nice direction. Hopefully they kind of fix some of these problems I have with it. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this type of video, and if you guys have any questions or comments or any feedback from me, maybe you guys have different opinions, make sure you comment below, and thanks for watching, everybody. If you guys enjoyed the video, I'll see you guys next time.